Welcome to the Longbox Paradox, episode 35, and it is a jam-packed week this week with releases. Way too many quality ones for me to even review or get into a 20-minute video, so I picked 4 this week, a couple from each company, kind of give a little sousant. So I'm going to start out with the lone Marvel book this week on my list. I would have done Immortal Hulk probably, but Absolute Carnage seemed like it was going to be a monster book and did not disappoint. Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman together again and weaving together a pretty large book. Starts out with Eddie Brock basically doing the background of Null and everything that happened in the Venom book so far. He's with Dylan, his son, but who doesn't know it's his son. And then we see that there's all these signs saying wanted Eddie Brock, and he starts running. And he gets pushed into on a train, in front of a train, and the Venom suit comes and rescues him, and they rebond again. And Cletus Cassidy comes out, Carnage. He's got the Grendel symbiote, which is an incredibly strong symbiote, and he just kicks the shit out of Eddie. Eddie hits the third rail and manages to electrocute both of them. The suit kind of takes over and mends Eddie, and they go looking for Peter Parker. And there's an interesting conversation in a diner where Peter is talking about Dylan's son. Dylan calls Peter a menace. Kind of interesting back and forth. There's a little bit of humor in there when we see like a robber come into the diner and then Venom and Spider-Man are sitting there. Spider-Man takes care of it. Eddie figures out that Carnage is trying to get the codex out of the former symbiotes, and he goes to see the maker, the evil Reed Richards from the other universe, who has already designed this machine to remove the codex. And he wanted to take it from Normie Jr., but then they decided they're going to go get the other Norman. And basically, Cletus is waiting for them. He's ready for them, and he's throwing little symbiotes from himself and infecting everyone else till there's just an army of these Carnage symbiotes that have that Null symbol on them. Where, I mean, Cletus Cassidy at this point is kind of almost like an avatar of Null. It ends on a bit of a cliffhanger with Carnage basically having these puppet strings on what I believe to be Norman Osborn. Really interesting way to end. Like I said, this episode's jam-packed, and you can actually pick it up without having read any of the former Venom issues, just because like they explain enough there that you know what's going on. Cates is just he does such a great job of getting you involved. I really don't give a shit about the symbiotes. I'm not even a big Venom fan. I haven't been a big Venom fan, but his writing is so good on this that I read it even though I'm not a big fan of the characters. And then, I mean, that's what a good writer can do, make you interested in stuff that you don't necessarily love. Looking forward to the next issue. Again, Stegman, some of this art in here was, I think, some of the best Stegman has done. Some of it looks like typical Stegman, but the parts with Eddie and his son kind of just walking around, I don't know why, but those actually I thought were some of the best pieces in the book. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. It was really good. It was solid. I don't know if I would have rated it higher if I cared a little bit more about the characters, but phenomenal job by Donny Cates and Stegman. This was a good one for Marvel for this week. I don't like the fact that it's going to be this gigantic crossover, but I'm interested to see where it goes just because of Donny Cates. So then we go to the Distinguished Competition at DC Comics, and we have Batman 76. I warned that I would probably review this because I spent the money on that Delato variant, because that was a beautiful freaking cover. starts out with right away a picture of Catwoman meowing. It's Tony Daniel and Tom King on this book. Captain Atom comes into Gotham and gets into it with Gotham Girl. Gotham Girl's dialogue is still horrible. She is basically taunting him about not knowing who he is, and then proceeds to beat the living shit out of him and throw him out of the city. While that's going on, Kite Man and the Tweedles and Scarecrow are running away, and Batman shoots one of the Tweedles. The Flashpoint Batman, of course, uses a gun. He's chasing after them. Kite Man ends up dropping one of the Tweedles, and him and Scarecrow go away. Then we move on to Selina. She is robbing paintings and art to sell. She has Bruce on her couch, who is comatose, I guess I'd say, and she's having this discussion saying, I know you'd be upset with me for stealing, and, you know, I wouldn't have to do this, but you're expensive to hide. It was a good moment of, like, a little bit of heartbreak of, you know, how she's feeling. As we're doing that, we jump over. Captain Atom is talking to Tim Drake about, you know, basically getting his ass kicked. Flashpoint Batman comes in and takes out Kite Man very fast, and then asks Scarecrow if he wants to do it the easy way and the hard way, or the hard way, and Scarecrow's like, the hard way, please. And then Damian and Tim have a conversation discussing, you know, what to do, what's going on, and about Gotham Girl, how, you know, her brother took out the Justice League pretty much. God, there are parts of this issue that were decent, like, but it's so minuscule, and it's funny when you have a storyline called City of Bane, and there's no Bane in this issue. And then it ends with Flashpoint Batman, Thomas Wayne, and Gotham Girl. She's on top of the gargoyle we've seen many times from, you know, the Jim Lee pictures. And he's like, do you hear anything, Gotham Girl? She's like, everything and nothing. And he's basically declaring that they've won because they're not hearing anything. And the issue ends. And this dialogue in this book has been nothing short of atrocious. I don't understand people's fascination with it. And I'm sure you're like, well, you hate this book. Why do you keep reviewing it? And honestly, I spent the money, and I keep thinking with 10 issues left or 9 issues, the end game of it all will be there, or, you know, some of it will start making sense. And not a fucking thing makes sense in this issue or this series lately. It's just nonsense, just utter nonsense. I dub the 5 out of 10 because you don't deserve any higher, but at the same time, you don't deserve lower. You're just average. But I will say though, I will grade the dialogue in this and give it a 2. I don't know why he's writing Gotham Girl like he is. It's just bad. It's not good. It's just not good at all. So yeah, I'm going to move on from this before I just keep digging, because it's something I really don't want to do. And we have the new book out from Image Comics called Coffin Bound. And it is by Dan Watters and a artist named... Dan Watters and an artist named Danny, Dani. And we meet our main protagonist, Izzy. She has a person there with her they call the Vulture, and it's a skeletal vulture head with a cage over the head. They're having discussion. These criminals or goons show up to the house wanting to start with her, and we found out that she's basically been targeted by the Earth Eaters. The Earth Eaters are interesting character design, or called the Earth Eater. They shovel handfuls of black dirt into their mouth. The Earth speaks to them. Interesting design on them. There are parts of this book that little bit horror, a little bit supernatural. The one thing that I noticed, they're in a strip club, and it felt like something straight out of Clive Barker's Hellraiser in there, with skin coming off. Interesting first issue. I'm gonna check out the next one. It's not a quick read. You got to really stop and absorb every bit of dialogue in this book. I'm gonna give this 6.5 out of 10. It was a decent first issue. Kind of interested to see where it's going. The art takes a little bit of getting used to. That's also kind of affecting my grade, where it was a little overly wordy and the art was okay but not fantastic. Not to like completely catch my eye and keep me involved. Again, I'm really curious to see where it goes, because it just had just enough of the horror elements to kind of get my attention. And from there, now we go to, as I've talked many times, Die is one of my favorite new books out. The Stephanie Hans cover is great. The Peach Momoku cover that features Angela and Case, I think, captures the soul of this particular issue. We pick up where the last one left off. Glasstown is destroyed. The party is split. And Eternal Prussia has invaded, and they're occupying. And Ash, Matthew, and Angela, as well as the fallen body of Saul, are all hiding. And basically they have an escape plan, but we learn more about the Fair Gold. The Fair Gold, which they need for Angela to be able to stealth them, do a giant hack, among other things, and she wants to keep Case alive. It's going to take 10 pieces of Fair Gold. Fair Gold disappears every dawn. So that explains why, if she didn't redo Case, give him another piece, that every day at dawn he dies. Saul basically is taunting them a little bit, like, oh, what'll you do, Matt? You torture your old friend? And Ash is like, maybe, I already killed you. And he starts having internal dialogue, like, he's like, I'm sorry, Saul, I wouldn't. And he starts wanting to ask the question, finally, of... He's like, I'll answer one question. And Ash says, okay, you may die. How? And after, like, a long pause, Saul's like, any question except that one. Which gets a fuck you, Saul reply. And they start trying to figure out how they can limit the amount of things Angela is doing, so that it takes less Fair Gold so they'd be able to escape. And they make the comment of Angela should let Case die. And she loses it, tells him, fuck you, and teleports away. And basically this is an Angela story, and we get more into what's going on with her. She gives Case more Fair Gold and gives him enhanced power to search for Fair. And they're stealthing around Eternal Prussia, the invasion forces there with all their mechanical dragons and sentries. And we go more into, in the other world, when she was a programmer, a story that went on with her. And as they're stealthing around, they're talking about it. And this hunt that they're on, they find these giant computerized beings, or they look like computer generated, like almost holograms. And she's asking for basically a boon. She basically is willing to wants Case taken away from her power so that she doesn't have to go through him dying and he'd be safe. They flip a coin and she loses. He doesn't get to be. So she has to make the decision to let him go. And as the sun's coming up, there's this beautiful scene where the Faragold disappears and Case dies. And in the first issue, they talk about how traumatized she was by her dog dying. And she's crying and Case disappears. And she goes back to where Ash and Matthew are, and she doesn't want to ever bring Case back again. She can't keep going through it. And Matthew uses his power to basically eat her grief, to power him. And they get the Faragold, and they're able finally to unleash their master plan, which ends up with her hacking one of the mechanical dragons and them flying away on it. And they fly to the town where in the first couple of issues they said they didn't want to go to. It's their past, basically. Angria. And as they're heading there, the welcoming party comes out, and we are now exposed to one of the most shocking reveals of the story, one they never talked about, glossed over, nothing. A character comes up on a white horse and says, "Lady Ash and company, we heard you had returned. Welcome back, mother." Ash is this character's mother. So now it opens up even more about some stuff. If you had watched the first Ink Panels graphic novel discussion episode that my co-host Gambit and I did, we kind of talked about how they danced around Ash's sexuality and really how much he embraced being a woman in this world, and apparently he embraced a lot. Fantastic issue by Kieron Gillen and Stephanie Hans. Just when you think it couldn't surprise you more, it hits you again. This is an 8 out of 10 for me. Pick up the trade if you haven't for the first arc, but just a beautifully written and drawn book. And just as a pet owner, just having had a pet die before and seeing the grief going through Angela and really getting a bit of her backstory more, because really didn't focus too much on her in the first trade and first couple of issues, so it's nice that she kind of got her moment. I imagine Matthew's gonna... we do not see the Godbinder, so I wonder if they're going to jump back to their story, but Chuck and Isabel are not shown at all, so I am curious if in the next issue or two we're going to get a little bit more into what's going on with them, or if it's going to stick on the main party, or how they're going to balance this out. Just fantastic. Just hats off to the creators, and can't say enough. So with that being said, going to probably wrap this up. Thank you for watching. Also, if you haven't seen Unknown Comics, there is a Ghost Spider cover, Virgin and regular cover by Shannon Mayer, or Marr, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Fantastic cover. I want to say the normal is $14.99, and you have to buy sets to be able to get the Virgin. But I haven't been too wild about Spider-Gwen, but this Ghost Spider cover is just fantastic. And Shannon Mayer or Marr is an artist to keep your eye on for covers. Just beautiful, beautiful work. I just want to take a moment and shout that out because it is totally worth it, and it's on my pickup list. So yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe. Also want to take a moment to thank someone who's been super supportive of me and really been a bright light in my life lately. They know who they are, so if they're watching this, thank you. So take care, guys. See ya, and happy new comic book day.